This is Mark Lane.
This is Robert Groden.
This is Dick Russell.
This is Dr. David Mantic.
This is Cyril Weck.
This is Jim DiEugenio.
This is Jerry Policott.
This is Bill Pepper.
This is Richard Belzer.
This is Governor Jesse Ventura, and you're listening to Black Op Radio.
Video computers online. Archiving 44K. Initiate sequence.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Server connection confirmed.
T-minus 25 seconds.
Live stream 2120K.
T-minus 20 seconds.
Phone lines are go.
T-minus 15 seconds.
Satellite uplink verified.
T-minus 10 seconds.
Mic check complete. Satellite uplink verified.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Black Op Radio, the voice of political conspiracy research. You're listening to Black Op Radio, the show NSA doesn't want you to hear. Now here is your host, Leno Osanic.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another segment of Black Op Radio. Today we are talking to Governor Jesse Ventura. Hello, Governor.
Hi, Len. How are you doing? Good to talk to you again.
It's very good to talk to you. I'm doing very good, thank you. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. I follow your work with interest, and a lot of people have a lot of respect for the work you're doing. It's a shame you're getting criticism in the press, but we're here.
Am I?
I saw the.
Len, I have to ask you, am I? I don't read that much mainstream press, so are they criticizing me?
But, I wasn't too happy with Piers Morgan, the way he kind of laughed and kind of tried to heckle you. You were great. You turned it around. You asked the audience and said, well, listen, audience, do some of my questions sound crazy? And one guy made a half clap, and then he says, well, is Governor Jesse Ventura bringing up important points? And it was almost a standing ovation. Everyone applauded.
Well, I felt good. Piers, he can be rough at times. He can be, Piers, which I guess that's what they pay him to be. People need to remember that those shows are not news shows. They are entertainment shows, and people need to be clear on that. Can you get news and information from them? Certainly you can, but always remember those shows are based upon rating points, and I guess the catch-22 of it is they would never have me on if I didn't get ratings. Let me put it to you that way.
I'll turn it around. I don't watch Piers Morgan. I'm not a fan at all of his style. Whenever you're on, that's the only time I turn it on.
Well, I got to take what I can get because, I can't get on MSNBC and I can't get on Fox. They've pretty much, without officially banning me, have banned me because every time I write a book, they have no interest in having me on about the book. So I'm left with CNN. So I hope that they enjoy that I do get them ratings, although I may be controversial and I may not always be in lockstep with whatever it is their agenda may be or whatever their personality that runs the show may be.
But look, no one agrees with anyone 100%.
So certainly.
We tune in to hear your opinion on something, and if you say, look, I generally agree with that, and what you're coming out to tell everyone is there's something really wrong.
The thing I really felt that I missed on, and maybe I can clear it up and get it out there to many people, is that when Piers brought up the 9/11 stuff, I should have always reminded him, and I got to remember to do this all the time, that the first thing you look for in government, if there's been wrongdoing, is you look for a violation of standard operating procedures. That's the first thing you look for. Because both civilian and military government run that way, on standard operating procedures. Things are done a certain way. When there's a violation to that, that's your first red flag. And on 9/11, to me, the major violation, and I feel so bad I didn't bring this out on Piers, is that Bin Laden allegedly committed murder, mass murder. Well, therefore, he needs to be indicted for it. That's the procedure. Our government has never brought a grand jury together and indicted bin Laden for the crimes. Now, we did that with Charles Manson. You know, we do that that's the way the procedure is to go. And my question is why and what the grand jury is, for those that don't understand it. That's a jury of citizens who are in a room, and only the government presents evidence enough. And it doesn't have to be conviction, but enough evidence, actual evidence, that the person should be indicted and that a trial should take place. And that's never been done with bin Laden. And that, to me, is the major gross violation of standard operating procedures. That's in our law. Why wasn't it followed?
Among many things that day that seemed to be an anomaly. And no one held accountable. No one fired.
Right. Yeah, no one got fired, nobody. And see, when things like that happen, having been in government myself, having served in the military, been a mayor, been a governor, that's the first red light for me. That sends an arm up into the air going, something isn't as it should be here, because we've got a flagrant violation of standard operating procedures. And when that happens, it's being done for a reason.
Yeah. Now look, you're not running right now, but I've figured out one way people can vote for you and show support is by purchase of this book. You've got a new book. If enough people, if you say, look, I don't know how to support Jesse, there's no campaign funds, you go out and buy the book, he gets a couple of million sales, then people will know that people are interested.
Well, let me add in there, I would prefer them to buy the book to get the knowledge.
Right.
You know, all the books I do now, I don't take front money. You know, certainly my first couple of ones was Shyman and Shyster, and the other one I did. But I'm with Skyhorse now. It's
right.
Kind of an independent rogue publisher, and I really enjoy the people there, and I have a personal relationship with them.
Good.
And so, sure, I make money off the books, but trust me, I don't need the money from the books to survive. I'm doing this now my partner Dick Russell is a professional writer, so certainly Dick would like to earn money because that's what he does for a living. I do these more to get word out, to make people think, and they need to understand the Democrats and Republicans and the facts behind them and what they do. And they are just like street gangs. They have a hierarchy. Loyalty has to be to the gang first. Woe be if you become a free thinker, because then the gang will cast you out because you're given marching orders from the gang on how you'll behave and how you'll vote and what you will vote yes or no on. It all goes to the gang, or in this case, the party, as they like to call themselves. Second loyalty is to the money. How does the gang make money? What is the supplier of money? If it's in the street, is it illegal drugs? Is it whatever they're going to do to earn money to support the gang? Well, it's the same thing with these two political parties. They've set up a system based completely upon bribery. If you bribe the gang, then you will get favorable things in government. And so the money, and then thanks to our illustrious Supreme Court that ruled that corporations have the same rights as individuals, and that money is a form of free speech, it's now coming in the boatloads. And the major concern there over how much money they're actually wasteful spending. You talk about wasteful spending. What could be more wasteful than this? Is the fact that there's no accountability. There's no open disclosure. It's one thing for them to bring in the billions of dollars of bribery money, but it's another thing that they don't even have to disclose who's bribing them. Do you realize right now, Len, a foreign country could form a corporation? They could channel billions of dollars through that corporation into one of these super PACs, and they could literally control who will be our next president towards their favorability.
Yeah, you're talking about the super PAC.
Well, that used to be against the law. Corporations could not give money to political campaigns. Now, of course, they found a way to loophole it, and our Supreme Court backed them up on it. So the only way this can be changed, and there is a group out attempting to do this, I urge people to find out who they are and jump on board with them. I forget their name. I heard them before I went to Mexico last year, something about them. They're out to amend the Constitution because that's the only way you can overrule the Supreme Court. You must do an amendment to the Constitution. They want to amend it to specifically state corporations do not have the same rights as individuals, and they want to amend it to say money is not free speech. And if that could occur, then it could reverse what I consider a decision by our Supreme Court that will ultimately destroy our country.
Right. Yeah.
I can't tell people more clearly that this decision will destroy our country, in my opinion.
Yeah.
As we know it.
I agree with you. The fact that they fight tooth and nail to keep a third party from happening. They realize that this is a monopoly, and if they ever let an independent in, an independent thinker, the jig is up.
Well, the jig might be up. You got to remember it's going to require the people of this country to stick behind that independent leader. They can't just elect him and then go about their merry way and think that he can get it done. Trust me, been there, done that.
Yeah.
The people must stay behind this leader for the whole time he's there. Because remember, you elect an independent, he has no party backing, he has no gang support. It's like sending one guy in to take on the street gangs or whatever. Well, you're going to need more than that to be successful, because these guys are well-oiled machinery. They control your media. The same corporations that control them certainly are controlling the mainstream media over what you're going to learn, you know. And I'll tell you this, if by chance it would happen, then they would inflict pain and punish the American people for doing it. So if the people are going to take a step towards this direction, they need to understand that it ain't going to come easy. It's going to require blood, sweat, and tears, and they're going to feel some pain, because these two parties will inflict it upon them if that happens, by just what you see in Congress, uncooperation, nothing gets done, stop the person from doing anything decent, you know, or that they want to do. That's the way it'll work. And so the public would need to understand they're going to have to bite the bullet if they truly want to take their country back.
Right, and that's some warning. Listen, let's get back. The book is called, today we're going to promote, DemoCRIPS and ReBLOODlicans. Now, where did you get that name?
Well, that name came to me actually when I was governor. I was in a staff meeting, and of course I had no party with me in Minnesota. I faced, you know, the ReBLOODlicans controlled the House and the DemoCRIPS controlled the Senate. And one day we were in a staff meeting, and I do not for the life of me remember who on my staff laughingly referred to them as the DemoCRIPS and the ReBLOODlicans. And I looked over and I laughed, and I said, you know, that's a better description of them than with their actual names. And so it kind of just stuck in the back of my head, and then when the idea for this book came out, it ventured its way to the front of my head again, because I remembered it, and I thought that would be a perfect title for the book, DemoCRIPS and ReBLOODlicans, subtitled No More Gangs in Government.
Right, No More Gangs in Government. And that's why I just had the idea here to say, listen, you can help Jesse and Dick Russell, but you purchase this book, you sell enough books, you say, well, we'll do another one. Skyhorse has been really making a name for itself by promoting these kind of books, especially on the JFK assassination and other unpopular topics maybe, and mainstream won't cover them. So that's why I want to encourage, try to, it's very rare you find something you really like. And I'm saying that a lot of stuff coming out of Skyhorse really seems to be worthwhile. And one way, if you're people listening to Jesse right now think, well, what can I do? Buy his book. Buy his book, read it, and like you say, by the time you finish the book, you're going to acquire this information.
And then do one more thing. Give it to someone else.
Right. And
say, read this book. There's information in this book. Let's be clear. There is no conspiracy theories in this book. They're trying to pigeonhole me now as the king of the quote-unquote conspiracy theorists, because I do a TV show on it and I wrote a book about it. This book, DemoCRIPS and ReBLOODlicans, everything written is backed up with a complete disclosure at the back of every chapter where all information came from. So this is not a book with Jesse's theories. Naturally, I put my own, opinions into the book at certain points of the book. That's what a writer is to do. But all the facts and figures in this book are accurate. They're nothing I made up, and there's no conspiracy theory about this any way, shape, or form.
Okay. Now, some of the points I want to get to. The book title, interesting. No more gangs in government. So you're referring to these two parties as gangs, and as an independent, you have the experience to say that. You look at their tactics as a gang warfare against the American people.
Yeah, very much so. Absolutely it is. It's gang mentality. I like to laughingly say that they're no different than the Crips and the Bloods, only these guys wear Brooks Brothers suits.
Yeah.
That's the difference. What they do, they're actually more dangerous than the Crips and the Bloods, and I'll explain that. The Crips and the Bloods, they do bad things. There's no doubt about it. But you're not going to be affected by them unless you live in their immediate neighborhood. I highly doubt in some rural town in Kansas you're going to run into a Crip or a Blood, that's going to be doing anything wrong. And so in light of that fact, switching over to the Democrats and Republicans, they affect each and every person that lives in this country because their decisions will affect you in some way, shape, or form, everything that they do. So that makes them far, far more dangerous because of the simple fact of the expanse of their domain. They're not just an LA street gang. They're not just an outlaw motorcycle club that rides around or whatever. These people affect everybody in the country by the decisions they make that become laws of the land.
Yeah, right.
And we go on to point out one part I love is the hypocrisy of what they tell you is good for you and yet how they live. The benefits that they get. Case in point, government-run health care. The hypocrisy, what do you think they're on? They're on government-run health care, and yet they're telling you you shouldn't have it. And they're not only, most of us are lucky to have one health care. I'm even going through it. Get this, I've been with the Screen Actors Guild 26 years now or more invested. Because I haven't done a movie in a while, they're now going to kick me off health care when I'm 3 years from retirement.
Wow.
Can you imagine that? Yeah, so that's what we face. I personally face that right now. And yet these elected congressmen and senators, they get 5 options, 5 different plans that they can choose from, whatever suits them and their family and all their dependents best. And then retirement. If people want to get term limits, you always hear everyone griping about term limits. Here's how you can do them without even implementing term limits. How about no retirements? This is public service they're supposed to be doing. Why should you get a retirement for doing public service, public elected service? That would give you term limits because there ain't nobody, unless you're a multi-millionaire, billionaire to begin with, there ain't nobody going to go serve and do 20 to 25 years getting reelected if they're not going to get some benefits and some retirement at the end of it.
Yeah, you've raised an interesting point on other interviews that when you ran for your state, you spent less than the office paid, and it's a very rare occurrence.
Oh, I don't think any major election in the last 50 years can equal what we did. We were completely grassroots, trust me. We were running by the seat of our pants. In fact, the day after we won the election, we all met in my kitchen, all my key people, and we all looked at each other and we went, what the hell do we do now? Because you can't concern yourself with what you're going to do when you get in. You have to concern yourself with winning. Because if you come in second, then all the things you wasted your time concerning yourself with everything you do when you got in. You need to focus, if you're running for election, on one simple thing, and that is winning, capturing the objective, completing the op. You have to be successful and complete the op. And once you do that, fine, then you can move forward. Then you got a few months to get ready and 4 years to do it if you're going to seek re-election.
Right. I was making the reference, though, that, as you said, millionaires, people that no way have any interest in the amount of money that the office pays. They just want to get in there for the benefit.
Oh, yeah.
And they're spending $10-12 million on something that pays $300,000 or $400,000 a year. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
Well, you certainly wouldn't do it in the private sector, and that's what my father said to me when I was a teenager. He was a World War II vet, 8th grade education, complete working man, worked for the city street department of the city of Minneapolis. And he said to me one day when I came home from school in high school, he said, all politicians are crooks. And I said, come on, Dad, you can't make a blanket statement like that. They can't all be crooks. He goes, yes, they are. I said, why? How do you know? He said, because they pay $1 million for a job that only pays $100,000.
Yeah.
And in his simple world of, 8th grade education, working man, that's all he needed to know that nobody in the private sector would spend more money getting a job than what the job was going to pay them.
Right.
That's what you hope when you go to college. College kids that go there and have to take out student loans, well, they're going there with the thought in mind that, well, I'll take this loan out now, but when I get this degree, I hopefully will get a job that will pay me enough money to where I can pay this loan off later, and I'll have made more money doing the job than what I spent to get it. I think that's a good layman's way of putting it out there for people.
Right. Yeah, words of wisdom. Let's get back to the book.
Sure.
DemoCRIPS, ReBLOODlicans, and even I have trouble saying it sometimes, ReBLOODlicans. The first thing you open the book, and you get a dedication here. To Hunter S. Thompson, a real journalist, a man who warned us. Give us a few words about Hunter Thompson.
Well, Hunter was an interesting guy. He was, to me, a true journalist who got out into the muck, the blood, and the beer, and actually went out and lived what he wrote about. And I find that rather than sitting in an office and doing it that way, Hunter was a hands-on type writer who lived what he wrote. And we need more of that. Hunter changed writing. And I think when Hunter was writing back for Rolling Stone and that, and some of his early stuff when he covered the political campaigns in the late 60s and early 70s, in his style, he warned us. He warned us that what these two parties were doing and what the direction they were going to evolve to eventually. And I think that nobody heeded the warning. So I never met Hunter personally. I had the good fortune when I was teaching at Harvard. I spoke with him on a telephone privately. We talked for about 2 hours one night. And it was later in Hunter's life. And then later on, of course, Hunter decided to leave the world. And so that's a regret I have, that I never got out there with him to blow up propane tanks, shooting him from the porch. I think that'd be very fun. I asked him that. I said, Warren Zevon, the late Warren Zevon, the great singer. I said, Warren told me that you can that if I come and visit you, that we can blow up propane tanks, shooting them. And Hunter said to me, oh yeah. He said, I got it set up now where I don't even have to leave the porch. So that was Hunter's idea, I guess. A Saturday night fun is put a detonator on a propane tank and shoot it from a distance and watch it blow up like an atomic bomb. And I'm sure where he lived at, when you learn the story of where he lived and when he actually was running for mayor there and he might win, it's some of the greatest. I'll put it this way. I guess the best thing I can say about this book is I think Hunter would have been proud of me for writing it.
Yeah.
I don't know that, but my son knew Hunter. And my son said, yeah, Dad, he said, Hunter'd be proud of you for writing this book. And that's good enough for me then, and that's why I dedicated it to him.
Good. I was very glad to hear that. Now, you elaborate into the contract wars, the American military being completely insulated from the public, that now money is coming in to fund whatever they want to do, and it's not even, it's contracted out.
Yeah, they do it under the premise of doing it under our flag, but it's being contracted out to mercenaries. Let's call them what they are. They're professionals, probably most of them from our military, who found out they can make a lot more money doing the same thing if they join a Blackwater or a group like that, and they can independently. I can't tell you how many of my former SEAL teammates are doing this for a living. And I don't mean to begrudge them their living, but I think it's highly dangerous to be part of that our government is hiring now mercenaries to go fight for them, rather than and it's way more expensive. and they don't fall under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. You're sending, in essence, cowboys out there that can do whatever they want to do, and they don't fall under any type of justice system while they're doing it. And they're not doing it every military person in this country takes an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Well, when you join one of these contract units, there aren't no oaths like that. The oath is who's hiring you and who's paying you the dough. That's who your allegiance is to.
Yeah. Now, also, I want to bring up that it seemed like Piers Morgan, a lot of people, they ask you about your religion, and, somewhat shocked, they go, well, you say you're atheist, and as if this is like a real failing that you can't run for any office. And you've got a chapter here, The Devilish Marriage of Church and State.
Well, there is one. Yeah, let's be real about this. Church is always trying to institute itself into the state and get their religious beliefs the law of the land. It happens all the time. It will be a constant fight. And that's the greatness, or should be the greatness, one of the greatnesses of our country. The fact that we separate church from state. That you don't have to believe in an official. I can't tell you how excited and ecstatic I was when Barack Obama did his inauguration speech almost 4 years ago, because he went down and he went through the litany of all the religions, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, and he went down the whole line. And when he got to the end, he said, and also non-believers. Now, he wouldn't use the word atheist, because that's probably too harsh, I guess. But he said non-believers. I turned to my wife. I leaped out of my chair. I said, we're legal. The president has spoken our name. We are now legal. It's okay to be an atheist and be an American and be just as patriotic. You have the same values that any religious person does. I just like to say I also don't believe in the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, or Santa Claus either.
Right.
And
yeah.
Well, great to the people that do. I'm happy for them. You have the freedom to do it. Just don't inflict it upon me. Don't tell me I have to. That's part of freedom too. I have the freedom to not believe. I have the freedom to have my own beliefs. And those need to be respected also. And it doesn't make me unless of a leader. It doesn't make me unless of a person. And it doesn't make me any more. I have compassion in my heart. I live by a simple premise. Treat others as you would like to be treated, the golden rule. And it doesn't require believing in a super being or a entity in the sky to have the beliefs that I have.
Yeah. And they're really pushing that everything is anti-American, is linked to Muslim, and now it's going to be a big war between Christian and Muslim.
And what's new in history? The lecture I just gave you, one of the major reasons is, and let's remember this, Jesus didn't believe in organized religion, and yet what you have here is the war of organized religions, the war of whose God is the right one and whose is the wrong, with radicals on both sides stirring the pot to create another religious war. And if you look down through the annals of history, the majority of wars are always caused over some type of religious thing. And so my belief is organized religion in many ways is the most dangerous thing in the world, because they cannot deny the fact it leads to wars. You worship God different than I do, so I'm going to kill you. And here's my biggest thing about all religions. All religions in some way, shape, or form oppress women. You find me one that don't.
Yeah, good point.
In some manner, they will oppress women. And I don't believe in that. And therefore, I don't adhere to any organized religion. And I have no fear of what comes after you live on this planet, because it's out of my hands anyway. It's nothing I can do about it. It's inevitable. And so why fear something that's inevitable? You don't have to welcome it, which I won't, you know, but I'm not going to fear it either, and I just don't require a belief that tells me if I pay homage to this all-powerful being that he'll bring me up and I'll live in a wonderful world in the clouds, and if I don't, I'm heading down with the fire and the brimstone and be down at that end. I just don't buy into that in any way, shape, or form, and I don't desire anyone to try to make me buy into it.
Yeah, right. And like you said, you appreciate the ability to stay neutral, to say, you know, well, if you're Jewish or Christian, fine, good for you. I'm not.
Yeah.
And don't,
and
you know,
don't include me in your wars if you guys start fighting with each other. How come I got to be included?
Right. Now back to the book. You are trying to find a way for a third party. It looked early like this Tea Party was going to be some alternative. Yet, as you mentioned with the Super PAC, somebody else can come in and put money in something and put a front on it.
Well, the Tea Party's been taken over by big right-wing money. So now what you have is a faction within the gang itself. You've had a portion of the gang is now going loyal to this Tea Party group within the ReBLOODlican gang. So that's something that they're going to have to deal with, and generally with not fully good results when that happens in a gang. You know, if another faction rises up, a gang within the gang, and that's what the Tea Party is now. They claim to not be Republican, but if you look at all the people and the money behind them, it most certainly ties them right in with the Republican Party.
And what you thought was a grassroots movement.
It started as one.
Yeah.
And then it was co-opted, much like the Democrats want to co-opt the Wall Street movement. The Democrats now want to cling, and that's how a gang works. If something rises up in your turf zone, you either kill it or absorb it. It's a simple gang philosophy, you know, kill it or absorb it. It either becomes part of the gang or you destroy it. And that's what they do to third parties. They co-opt them. And they, you know, or movements, and that's what they're attempting to do with the Wall Street. But Wall Street's done very well because it really has no leaders, so there's no leader to co-op. You know, there's no leadership to the Wall Street stuff in which to co-opt them, and so the Dems are having a difficult time doing that. Where the Tea Party was pretty easy for the Republicans to co-opt them and get control of them.
Right. Well, this big money just snuck its way in, and before you know it, I don't think they weren't as organized to recognize that they had been taken over.
Well, notice that when they show the Tea Party in mainstream media, it's always portrayed as patriotic, and when they show the Wall Street, it's unpatriotic. Notice that out of the media too. The comparison between the two protests.
Yeah, it's another good observation. Now, with the third party, I was hoping that Ron Paul would have, I don't know if it's the courage to lead the Republicans, but he didn't. He stuck with it, and it's really a shame that I think that whenever they could, they belittled him.
Well,
and discuss Ron Paul a bit.
Yeah, well, I devote a lot to Ron Paul because Ron Paul believes a great deal in the things that I believe in, and Ron Paul, when you talk to him, will tell you what he knows, which is so refreshing. Ron Paul doesn't give you double talk. Ron Paul tells you what he knows and passes it on, and I admire him very much. And his decision to not break off, that's his and his alone. I don't begrudge him that one bit, whatever decision that he would come to. But I also, clearly you see he's a man of character because the Republicans offered him a bribe. They said he could speak at the convention if he would endorse Romney. And Paul declined. He gave up the chance. See, there's a statesman. There's a patriot. Someone who's not out to grease his own pad. You know? He could have got up there and he could have made a big speech and did what he wanted, and all he had to do was endorse Romney, but he was a man of conviction who said, no, you're not going to bribe me to do something that I don't want to do. And I don't want to, and so far he's holding to it, and I kudos to Ron Paul still. You know, he's not endorsing Romney. He said he probably doubted he would, and I don't think he will. And he kept his integrity and he kept his beliefs, and it didn't. So the gang will never fully accept him because he didn't make a gang decision with them.
Yeah, it's another good point you brought up, because you have a lot of respect for Ron Paul, and yet you expect it. The major media is belittling him as fringe.
Yeah, well, they do that they fringe and they make fun, and and that's part of what they have to do, and how they get into the American psyche that you're only allowed to vote for a Democrat or Republican, or you're wasting your vote. It all ties in together the way it's portrayed, and we need to break free of that. We need to become free thinkers and vote for the person we want to be president, not pick the lesser of two evils. As Jerry Garcia said to the Grateful Dead, you're still picking evil.
Yeah. Now, look, you do research with Dick Russell.
Yeah.
When you're putting
Dick
together the book.
Let me put this out. Dick does the majority of the research. I do a great deal of reading. That's Dick's forte. That's why we make a good team. Because Dick loves to do research, and I can't stand it, but I'll read it. Once he's located it, I'll read it, and that's the way we work together.
You've got 18 chapters just packed with information here, like you said. No conspiracy, nothing. Just information and real get people thinking about the problem and understanding the problem. As at the end, you try to suggest a solution. But I'm asking, what was one thing that really stuck out that in the research with Dick Russell that you came across that when you went to research it was just shocking?
I don't know. A lot of it. It's hard to pinpoint. A lot. The amounts of money that is coming in, and those are shocking, and all that. But I guess on a layman's level, for a bare little thing where I just sat back and said, "You got to be kidding me," was when we found out that 21 congressmen and senators have been convicted of felons, and we still have to pay their retirement.
Yeah, that's shocking.
That as small as that is, it wouldn't break the bank. Yeah, it's the principle of it. So in other words, as long as you get elected to Congress and Senate, and you're part of these two gangs, you can commit a felony, get convicted, and go to prison, but your check will still arrive. Our tax dollars paying the retirements of convicted felons. And that was one that really stuck in my craw.
Right.
That's why I can recite it to you even today. As simple as that is, it's just outrageous to me that they can be convicted felons and still get their retirement benefits.
And what's the worst that's going to happen to them? They're censured.
Yeah, exactly. They get censured. I used to do talk radio, and we used to use that word, and we'd reverberate it and all that, because whenever someone would do something or other, I'd say to my co-host, uh-oh, now they could face being censured. And we always took that word censured and, really played with it in the show, like, worse than death, worse than life in prison. You get censured.
Yeah.
That's all they face.
Now, one thing you mentioned as worried about electronic voting is I thought...
Oh, I'm very worried about it. I think you got the wrong perception.
Oh, well, I think you said...
I'm totally worried about electronic voting machines. They can be hijacked.
Oh, I think that you weren't worried about a phony vote. You were worried about how many people have been taken off the polls.
Well, I'm not worried about voter fraud.
Yeah, okay.
Voter fraud is a red herring. All these states that are having this voter ID, it's a red herring. There's more people get struck by lightning than commit voter fraud. Now, where voter fraud happens is in the electronic voting machines. They're not going to voter fraud individual people when they can literally do it to an entire election because of the machines they use. Why would they bother trying to sneak? It's a big red herring. It's nonsense. If they want to look in and do something, take us back to the old paper ballot where you got to fill in the dark circle. And anybody that can't do that, throw their ballot out. Because if you're not capable of filling in the dark circle, you've been doing it since first grade. Right? Remember the first test you took in first grade where you had to True, false. Fill in the dark circle. Is it true or is it false?
Yeah, yeah,
Well, you've been doing it since you were 6 years old, 5 years old.
yeah,
If you're incapable of doing that, you shouldn't be voting anyway.
yeah.
Fair enough? Yeah, no, but go back to that. Sometimes modern technology is not better. And in the case of our elections, it is not better. It's worse because you have no, let me put it in the layman terms again. Nobody would go to an ATM machine that didn't offer you a receipt.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, these electronic voting machines offer you no receipt. There's no way you know for sure if when you press, like I will proudly press the button if we have them. We're paper here in Minnesota yet. But I would proudly press the button. I'm going to for Gary Johnson, the former governor of New Mexico, who's running Libertarian. That's who I'm voting for. That's who I want to be the president. That's why I'm voting for him. But there's no way for me to know if in an electronic voting machine, if I press that button, that Gary got my vote. That vote could go to Mitt Romney or Barack Obama, and I would have no way of knowing it if the machine's hacked into.
Right. And it's like, I guess, odds at a racetrack where they change the more people vote. So they make it so that it doesn't stand out. It's just enough to be, within a 2 or 3%. So, who's going to suspect voter fraud in the machine? But a lot of people are warning about it. And like Stalin said, it's who counts the votes.
Well, and again, sometimes old is better. Let's go to paper ballots also, because if you've got a close vote, then you can count the ballots one at a time. You're not getting them a piece of paper like an adding machine that says 3,200 votes for this guy and 2,900 for that guy. You can count them one at a time. We've had recalls in Minnesota recently, and they've all come out to be completely honest because they count the votes one at a time, and both sides are there as they count the votes. It takes a while, to count up 1 million votes and more, 2 million, 3 million votes. But better to have it take a while and be correct than to have a quick decision and the wrong decision.
And another point that you bring up in the book is that the wealth that was supposed to be the 99%.
Okay, here's the other astounding thing. You're good at piquing my memory. Here's one that probably blew my mind away the most. This last recession, the 2008 recession, where all of us literally lost wealth. If you own home or multiple homes or anything, they've all gone down in value. You do not have the wealth that you used to have. Literally everybody. Well, we found that's not true. From 2008 to today, a small group, you'd call it the 1% of the 1%, in other words, the billionaires actually increased their wealth 5 times, roughly. Now, that should tell people clearly that it's in their best interest that we go into recessions, because if we go into a recession, that's a payday for them, where they become even richer. And that, I think, is a major thing in this book that I want people to get from it, is that it should tell you that these recessions are all controlled. They happen by design. We've been having one a decade, like clockwork. It's like clockwork. Once a decade, we have a recession. And I guess that's so they can go from being worth $10 billion to $50 billion. I personally, if you got $1 billion, why would you need any more? That mind boggles me. Yeah.
Well, that's chapter 4 in your book, The Rich Get Richer, The Poor Get Poorer, and you go through that, so that's what we're urging people to pick up the book. And if you're not up to speed on some of these ideas, it's a warning, and like Hunter Thompson tried to warn people that, the high water mark of where democracy was supposed to be, it's a republic, and now it's really, you called it like...
fascist.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is, fascist. I think Mussolini would be proud of us today. Because the basic definition of fascism is when corporations take over the government, and we're there. They've taken it over. Their money has bought out these two political parties, and so that's who runs the show. Plus, let's not forget, the message also from Ron Paul on the Constitution. It's unconstitutional to have a central bank. Why do we have one?
It's an uncomfortable thought to think that the Federal Reserve is really foreign owned. People just assume, I think, well, the Federal Reserve, it's got to be owned by Americans. It would just have to be.
Well, not only that, but it's against the Constitution. It says clearly there shall be no central bank.
Right.
Again, why? And that's been 15 years ago or whatever it was, 110 years ago that happened with the scoundrel Woodrow Wilson, when they created the Federal Reserve, and it's unconstitutional.
Yeah, right before Christmas break, as I recall.
Did they go out? Did they go out and get 2/3 approval from the states?
No, they didn't.
Exactly, because they didn't put a bank in the Constitution, and in order for something to be the Constitution to be amended, 2/3 of the states have to vote in favor of it. So it has to go to a vote from the states. That's the way the system was designed. They're not following that anymore.
Yeah. Now, look, Governor Ventura, I'd like to ask you just a couple of things not as related to the book.
Sure.
Your continual airline travel boycott. Tell me a little bit about your feelings about this.
Well, I just as an individual, after I attempted to sue under my Fourth Amendment rights, and the courts threw it out. They won't let me go in front of a jury. They won't let me be in front of a jury of my peers to decide a constitutional question. They threw it out, and the judge ruled she didn't have jurisdiction, and she was a federal judge. My question is precisely, if they don't, then no one does, and that's the point. People need to understand that any time you go to an airport in America today, you are unprotected. You are not protected by the Constitution. You are not protected by the Bill of Rights. Now, nowhere in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights does it say that anything deserves this, that anything in the land can be unprotected by the laws of the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. So again, they're violating the Constitution by simply what they're doing. I sued under the Fourth Amendment reasonable search and seizure. I contend it's not reasonable to believe Jesse Ventura poses a threat. I've been flying for 30 years. I'm an honorably discharged military veteran. I've been a mayor. I've been a governor. And therefore, they're violating my Fourth Amendment rights by I have metal in my body. So when I pass through the metal detector, I'm subjected to the sexual assault or the microwave, the radiation machine. And so when it got thrown out of court, of course I hadn't flown then for about a year and a half while it was pending in court. And when it got thrown out, then Janet Napolitano, I think, made a quote, not necessarily to my case, but to the general public. She said that at airports, if you don't like it, don't fly. So I've exercised that option. I don't like it, so I don't fly. I have not flown now for, I guess it would be close to 2.5 years, I think. I'm not really missing it. It's a convenience of speed, but, I've been going by other modes of transportation to get where I need to go, and I find that the other way is much less stressful when you go to airports today. They're very stressful. It's like going into prison, because you're treated like an inmate when you're in there, so not going to airports has been a wonderful experience for me. It does make traveling harder because you don't have the speed to get to places and things of that nature, but it's something I guess I'll just have to live with till I get my country back.
Yeah. Yeah, well, congratulations to sticking to your guns. I remember, I'm old enough to remember when people got dressed up to travel. It was a luxury. It was a good, this is going to be great. We're going on a holiday or wherever. And now you're driving to the airport and you're dreading, okay, don't say the wrong thing, don't look the wrong way, don't leave your bag unattended. Oh, and like you mentioned.
And be prepared to strip down. And be prepared to become comfortable with being searched. in a free country.
The most important thing is, in the airport, your rights are no longer valid there.
No, they're not valid at all, and people need to understand that you are not protected. There's no place you can go to seek redress. I, Jesse Ventura, tried, and I was a governor. There's no place you can go to seek redress if they abuse you. You get this, in my court case, the judge asked me, Governor, can you cite a time you were abused at the airport? And my attorney stepped in and said, the governor can't do that because TSA rules fall under Homeland Security and we're not allowed to know what the rules are. So we as citizens can't even know what they're allowed to do. So they can do anything they want to you out there. Anything. And there's nothing you can do because you don't know what the rules are. You're not allowed to know the rules. And I ask people, is that the United States of America today?
I mean, it's shocking. It's like the old story, how do you cook a frog? Slowly.
Exactly. And it's like when you asked me earlier, what do you think is more, concerned? I said our rights, more so than the economy. I'd rather be poor and free than rich and in jail. How's that sound?
Yeah. Well, we're talking about your latest book with Dick Russell, and as I mentioned, you don't have a political party you can support, but you can support Jesse by purchasing the book.
Yep.
And then, you sell enough books, Skyhorse feels happy about that. They encourage another book, and we're looking forward to this independent thinking that you and Dick Russell have been bringing.
Unfortunately, there's no other book on the horizon right now. I've said all I can say. People don't seem to want to listen. Some are. There's great people out there that are paying attention, but many, many, many aren't. And right now, I got to tell you, this could be my last book because unless something inspires you, I know it's an old cliche, but you got to be inspired to write. And I will not just write for the sake of repeating myself over and over again.
Well, I've got a few ideas for you, so.
Okay, well.
But anyway.
Whether or not I'll go to Mexico and things seem to level out down there, and that's where Dick and I do the writing anyway. So something could happen always when I get down to Mexico in the winter.
Right, which brings me to the next question. Discuss your TV show then. If the book rating is down, we're looking forward for season 3. Is this on the horizon now? Yeah,
it's November 7th, 9 or 10 Eastern, 9 Central, 2 TV. There will be 7 more conspiracy theories. They're the wildest I've ever done this year. We've got kind of a new cast. My son joins me on screen, as well as we have Sean Stone, who is the son of Oliver Stone.
Right.
And Sean's exceptionally bright kid, graduated from Princeton, and he's very knowledgeable about a lot of conspiratorial things. The old apple didn't fall far from the tree. And so Sean joins us, and June's back, and we look into some wild stuff. And I think the thing I'd like people to realize most, though, is that we did 8, but they're only going to air 7.
Can you tell me the topic of the episode they didn't want to cover?
Yeah, they didn't want to do the one we did on the TSA.
Oh, no surprise there. Well,
they for whatever reason, that one is going to see the light of day, but I'm going to spill the beans about what we learned. They're going to come out at the airports with these wristbands that you'll be able to get put on you. Much like The Running Man. Remember the movie The Running Man?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, except those were around the neck. These will simply be around the wrist, and people are going to love them. You'll be able to go out there, you'll be able to have this wristband, you'll pass through security, there won't be any of the intrusiveness or anything that you've been used to. So everybody's going to go along with the program and think it's wonderful. But here's the part they're not telling you that we learned. They will be able to disable you if you're wearing one of these, much like a taser.
Oh, God. When you first said wristband, I was thinking of people getting tattooed, in World War II.
Well, it's almost the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they'll be able to disable you. So if you cause trouble or anything that at the airports that you're out of line, they'll be able to drop you to the floor, and I guess you'll be foaming at the mouth and wheezing and having a seizure. I'm not sure what they do, what the end result will be from the thing, but I'm sure it'll be wonderful. I mean, after all, let's remember we're now a country that that advocates waterboarding and torture that way, so why not implement it into the TSA and get a little bit out in the airports too?
Well, there must be...
Is my sarcasm ringing through, I hope?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, just look at...
Well, you got to say that now, otherwise people don't... Oh, you should have heard what Jesse Ventura said, and I might be just being sarcastic. You know, that's the unfortunate thing about today. You have to spell things out very, very clearly.
Right. Okay, Governor Ventura, it's been a pleasure to speak to you. Good luck with this book. I hope we can encourage people to pick it up. As I mentioned, you may not have another book for a while, so support for independent thinking and help Skyhorse. I think Skyhorse is doing a good job. So, and Dick Russell. And anything you guys do, I think is worth it.
And for yourself, don't forget, you're reading this book for yourself, to educate yourself, to learn what's going on, so that you can speak intelligently and make a good decision. And like I always like to end like this: anybody that reads this book cover to cover and still votes for a Democrat or Republican, they're the problem, they're not the solution.
Good note to end on.
No problem. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Have you ever thought about actually getting off the grid and becoming truly self-reliant? Introducing a brand new book for independent Americans who want practical advice on how to survive and even prosper in the challenging days ahead. The Big Book of Off-the-Grid Secrets is packed with hard-hitting information on self-reliance gardening, food preparation, alternative energy, home security, and more. At 436 pages, there's simply nothing like it anywhere. Get the Big Book of Off-the-Grid Secrets by going to offthegridsecrets.com. That's offthegridsecrets.com, or call 800-206-4095. That's 800-206-4095. Order online and get our top 14 off-the-grid special reports free with your order. Reports like Cash Garden, how to grow all the food you'll ever need and stick to your guns, how to legally carry firearms almost anywhere, anytime, plus 12 more reports worth over $350, all free with your order. Order today at offthegridsecrets.com. That's offthegridsecrets.com.
Black Op Radio presents Colonel L. Fletcher Prouty, the DVD Complete Collection. Finally, the DVD set you've been waiting for is available. Over 15 hours with Colonel L. Fletcher Prouty. Over 15 hours. Interviews with Len Osanic, John Judge, David Ratcliffe, and more. This is a one-of-a-kind set. These interviews feature Fletcher Prouty having candid conversations regarding his 23 years in the military, but specifically 9 years in the Pentagon from 1955 to 1964. His inside knowledge is invaluable to researchers of this era of American and world history. These are the revelations you've been waiting for. Over 15 hours with Colonel L. Fletcher Prouty, the complete DVD collection. Available at the Colonel Prouty reference site, www.prouty.org, and blackopradio.com. We can now say, with moral certainty and considerable scientific authority, that the death of JFK was committed by a meticulously executed conspiracy which was obscured by an extensive cover-up. Murder in Dealey Plaza, edited by James Fetzer, goes to the heart of the JFK assassination. You'll read new and up-to-date information regarding the Secret Service, the Lincoln limousine, the medical evidence, the cover-up, altering the film, framing the patsy, and the silent historians. Also, 16 smoking guns, each one crushing the government's lone assassin scenario. A world-class chronology of November 22nd, 1963. Chapters by David W. Mantic, Gary Aguilar, Vincent Palomera, Douglas Weldon, Jack White, Ira David Wood III, James H. Fetzer, Doug Horn, and a classic essay by Bertrand Russell. The complete story in the pages of one single book, edited by James H. Fetzer. Read it now. Read it again. You'll use it as a reference. Murder in Dealey Plaza. Available at Amazon.com and major bookstores around the world. It's murder. It's a political rally. A free speech zone. A town hall meeting. It's an interrogation at NSA headquarters. Now, it's time to make a statement. Time to represent. time to let them know who you are. That you're part of the Black Op. With a brand new Black Op Radio t-shirt. Comes in all sizes. Wear it loud and proud. Join the Black Op today. www.blackopradio.com. Even Bush admits that Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with 9/11. Our own FBI acknowledged it has no hard evidence that ties Osama bin Laden to 9/11. But if Saddam had nothing to do with 9/11, and if Osama had nothing to do with 9/11, then who did it? Who did it? The 9/11 conspiracy provides the answer. Discover the big picture. Learn what we know now. Find out what it means. 11 experts contribute to exposing the truth as the anatomy of an atrocity. Edited by James H. Fetzer. Buy it now if you have the courage to face the truth. Just don't think you're going to like it. If you believe there's more to the JFK assassination and the mystery surrounding the CIA and its covert operations, you're not alone. Meet the man Oliver Stone called X in the epic motion picture JFK. Colonel L. Fletcher Prouty comes forward with never-before-seen or heard documentation and information about JFK, the Vietnam War, the CIA, and more on a brand-new CD-ROM. The collected works of Colonel L. Fletcher Prouty is an incredible offer not to be missed. For a limited time only, find the answers surrounding these issues and more with the collected works of Colonel L. Fletcher Prouty. Or visit the Colonel Prouty reference site on the World Wide Web, the collected works of Colonel L. Fletcher Prouty. Stem cell research. Abortion. Cloning. Evolution. Creation science. Intelligent design. These are hot button issues today. Religion and science. Morality and government. Corporations and fascism. If you want to know what's happening to this nation this very day, then you won't want to miss Render Unto Darwin. After 35 years of teaching logic, critical thinking, and scientific reasoning, Jim Fetzer offers a critique of the Christian rights crusade against science. If you want to understand the issues, if you want to be informed, this is a book you won't want to miss. Render Unto Darwin. At Amazon.com and the major bookstores. Render Unto Darwin.